So a lot of global south people watching us obviously have interest in decolonization, but often this also intersect with their work. And we know that global south voices are in demand in global north circles and even colonial global south circles to be co-opted, neutralized, and appropriated. The invitations come up about speaking at conferences, joining advisory boards, contributing to publications, participating in workshops, be part of the network. And many accept these invitations with the hopes of these things bringing visibility or open possibilities for projects, for getting to know other people, etc. So it kind of weaponizes these relationships, but nothing comes out of it. It's just like invitations for more things after. So how do you see this dynamic showing up? How can we see these distractions more easily, and how can we learn from other people's mistakes?
Hmm. I think I see this twofold. The first is from the individual's experience. So we need to look at coloniality through the lens of narcissism, which generally means that coloniality attracts narcissist personalities. And so when these spaces are offered by coloniality, the invitation comes from colonial sources or Western aligned sources, then more often than not, the way that they attract is through a sort of congratulations, right? Through a sort of celebration of you as a person, and you are so valuable. That is the reason why we want to have you at our event or in our board or contributing in our project, etc. Lifting your voice or whatever that is. And so there is a perspective that narcissists with certain ideologies that are conditioned by liberal hegemony towards, let's say, social justice or climate justice or whatever, are being attracted, right? It's like this gigantic magnet that is sifting through all the non-magnetic things, and then all the magnets are being sucked up into this space. And in a way, it's kind of like, well, is that a good thing? Because like we don't really want those people in society. If you are going to be attracted by narcissist invitations, then maybe you should kind of like go and like stay there, and that's like, a good salary to have, blah blah blah. So that's one perspective that I definitely end up with because, I see a lot of people's trajectories and careers and they want, a certain type of career progression. They want a certain paycheck. They want certain visibility, certain status. They want to rub shoulders with certain types of people and be in rooms where certain decisions are being made or be part of project teams that are working on certain policy documents, etc. Like, all of these things are what we are taught that we should want if we want to be successful within a certain power structure. Unfortunately, that power structure that we live in is a colonial world order. So if you are for decolonization, why would you want to contribute to that power structure with your talents, your gifts, your time, your effort, your energy, your life? Why would you want to do that? That makes no sense whatsoever. So if you are truly for decolonization, you are going to learn hard and fast about what these organizations are actually doing. And sometimes it means you have to join an organization to learn it the hard way, to understand that when you are part of that structure, you are complicit. And it's a very gray area in the global south because they'll say all the right things because you are conditioned to hear all of those things that they say. And then once you are locked in, you are conditioned again by the environment that they build around you. All the congratulations that you are receiving for the impact that you are making for the minimal salary that they are offering you on their contracts. But yet you tell yourself that I'm going to stick at it because I'll just do a certain number of years and then I'll get a number of contacts, networks. I'll be able to build a CV for myself, and then I'll go to a different organization and I'll get different experience in those things and I'll build a career, etc. And meanwhile, all of these organizations, every last one, are paid by the US State Department or USAID or the National Endowment for Democracy or Open Society Foundation, Ford Foundation, whatever it is. They are all being used as Western aligned interests acting within foreign countries, countries in the global south especially. And NGOs in the global south are being used for these purposes. Whether it's, you know, a large NGO, a small NGO, doesn't really matter. Like these people have that amount of money, they have that amount of power, they have that network to be able to infiltrate these networks and use it for their own benefit in order to run regime change operations the moment that they need to. This is the reason why we saw things happen so fast, things escalate so quickly in Bangladesh, even without a single person leading the protests, without any political leader whatsoever coordinating anything. Suddenly, within a few weeks, and yes, hundreds of students dying on the streets, we have an ousted prime minister and a new one literally being helicoptered in straight from New York. Is that crazy? Or did that basically happen again in Pakistan? And now they are doing the same in Indonesia, in Philippines, etc. This happened during the Arab Spring. That is when they learned all of the techniques to perfect this mode of regime change operations through infiltration. And so today, when you are involved in these NGOs or these forums, invitation by Global South inclusion measure, this is the agenda. That is what you're being used for. So why on earth, if you are for decolonization, would you ever want to contribute to something like that?
In theory, there is this understanding of decolonization, but then in practice, decolonization and inclusion or DI approaches, like there is a confusion there.
It's not accidental confusion.
No,
This is a
no.
manufactured confusion. That's what you're trying to say, right? It's that they have told us what decolonization is supposed to look like, and you have to play that game because we're all supposed to be for non-violence, right? That's what we're all supposed to be about. Like we're all supposed to like worship Gandhi. Like that's the
Exactly. And then it is like this black person in a position of power inside this NGO, and it ends up being this. I don't know if there is this Trojan horse strategy of I will enter this and then my presence there, I will change things, blah blah blah. But what's end up happening, and that is very intentional, as you said. I think it's not on the individual. There is the whole set of mechanisms around how the system incentivizes that kind of narrative and that kind of confusion because it's much more beneficial, the narrative of inclusion, of bringing these people in the system to transform it very superficially, but is essentially you are including people and giving their knowledge and experiences in a silver platter to improve, to make the immune system of this monster even stronger, by appropriating these things instead of disinvesting from this, and putting your energy, time, wisdom, skills, resources into building something different, and not depend on these things. So I think even that is what I see happening a lot here in the communities I am embedded in, and the conversations I have, is that there is this intellectually people understand, and they are citing or quoting Fanon, they are quoting these people, but then in practice, it's like, well, the narrative of DEI and inclusion is much more widespread than actual decolonization. And that is a big problem, I think.
Yeah, I think the difference here is between rhetoric and practice. There are people who enter into those spaces and they waste like 20 years of their lives And then they realize, look at what they've accomplished. It's so, so insignificant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then like some of them never really come to that realization that it's like they've been trapped in a system that is designed for them to do nothing. You get a salary and then you believe that you're doing something, but you're really like doing nothing. So it's designed to like neutralize you and to trap you in that place, especially the ones who are like qualified. Like, you went to university or you did a master studying whatever, like international relations or like something something justice and equity or whatever it is, social justice. And then you enter into that space and it's like you're dead. Your career is dead. You've been taken out of the entire system and you are like, okay, you get like as little a salary as we can pay you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then it's like you can never ever make any change because we have you now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this other dynamic of like, well, you are being used to advance Western hegemony through the NGOs. They have a state mandate and a budget to advance Western interests. And you are, because of, the small salary that they pay you, now serving Western interests. So
Uh-huh.
there's this co-optation part. So there's not only the like neutralize, there's the co-opt. So like what are you really serving here? Like in all of those cases, you would be much better off working for 2 years, saving up money, going and buy land at the most remote part of your country that you can find, you know, go and grow some food, like,
Uh-huh.
because you would do
Yeah.
far less damage to your own country, to your own people that way.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
So for me, this comes from like seeing other people's trajectories and watching them not even realize that they're being used by Western powers to advance Western interests in their own country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of people in the global south see that people who say certain things are celebrated no matter how they behave.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there is this aspect of gaslighting, again, coming back to self-gaslighting, which is that is all I need to do in order to receive congratulations, in order to receive approval, in order to receive some level of, I guess, worship.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're looking at leaders that we're told that we should follow or that we should try to live up to, and then their standards are so low, it's such a low bar of integrity, of authenticity, and of actual action, like actual devoted, committed action with a real strategy for real decolonization. Those real people who were really working for decolonization, you will not know who their names are because they will not be celebrated. They will be demonized. They are called terrorists. They are locked up in jails, bankrupted. They are hunted down. If you are not an enemy of the system, you are not doing real decolonization. And that is something the vast majority of people learn the hard way. And when they learn it, they shut up and they go to work the very next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the system is very effective in shutting this down. And in some cases, I even see people following the path of embodied decolonization until it reaches a point of exactly as you mentioned, that their lives are made so hard that then they divert into acceptance of whatever is given to them.
Yeah, I think this is where religion has a lot to teach us. A lot of us are very close to our religions, and we somehow separate this idea of impact from what our religions teach us about how to help ourselves, how to be good neighbors, how to be good human beings, how to be good citizens. The West doesn't want us to believe that we have any other way of knowing how to be a good human being except from what the West tells us. And so we sideline or we neglect what we literally, in some cases, we're reading our holy books every single day. We're going to our places of worship at least once a week. And yet those things are kind of compartmentalized in our minds, in our identities, and the ways that we, make lifestyle decisions, etc. Because our salary comes from this entire structure of Western liberal hegemony in these NGOs, I mean. And I'm not talking about grassroots NGOs, although I have to say, a lot of grassroots NGOs, even though they might not get their funding directly, but they are certainly heavily influenced, and all of their sources of information are from the West.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that a lot of people just have to learn the hard way. And as I said, vast majority of people involved in these NGO spaces never realize that by the end of the career, they were neutralized in a system that gaslighted them so that their skill set cannot be used against the system, which is a colonial world order.
I see that a lot, like this dissociation and people fooling themselves in believing that they are indeed following their values when in practice they are being manipulated and neutralized, as you said.
Right. So this is the investment folly that after a certain point you are unable to recognize that everything that you have been working towards is actually against the very thing that you were hoping for in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Because you already invested so much time and effort to get where you are. Yeah,
And that's when
exactly.
you also as an effort for self-preservation, in order not to destroy your concept of yourself in your mind because of all the years that you've invested in this thing, you go towards this space of thinking where it's interest convergence. You give yourself excuses like, oh, I need a salary and I need to do something that's like not too bad, right? So it's something that I needed to do.
These cognitive dissonance mechanisms of justification, of externalizing blame, of putting this up on the hierarchy of power in whatever organization you are in, and I was just following orders or whatever, right? Like there are multiple infinite ways that you can justify your acts that are not, instead of taking responsibility for them.
Right. And reality is you're an adult of legal age. If we don't understand the mechanisms by which coloniality is imposed onto us, internally and externally, how can we even start to practice decolonization? That's like saying we want to create a sustainable world without knowing how our world became unsustainable in the first place.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.